Inside the Line, real stories by real cops. Welcome to the latest episode. I'm Dave Rattigan, sitting across from Dale Lawrence, retired police officer. And finally, Dale, a subject that I am an expert on, psycho women. Or are they con men? This episode is called The Guest That Wouldn't Leave. This is a situation that frequently puts the cop in a really hard situation. A tough thing to enforce and it's a tough thing to get it right out of this wrong.
Absolutely, because a lot of the situations we're talking about when you invite someone over to your house to stay the night or a couple of nights or whatever the situation may be, at some point it becomes a civil matter, like a landlord-tenant dispute, and typically, at least in Massachusetts, it's civil. It's not necessarily criminal. We're going to have some criminal ones that we're going to talk about. So cops have a hard time dealing with civil law, meaning that they don't have a lot of options to arrest people in civil law.
It's a tough situation for the cops. Let's talk about the first one because it's
story of your life.
I love the beginning of the story.
The title is, I Just Wanted to Get Laid. That's all it is. A guy meets a girl. They're in their 20s. Guy meets a girl at a local bar. They have a few drinks. He's around 25. She's around 25.
You have
Everything's
beautiful
legal.
eyes.
What's that?
That's so funny. That's interesting. That's really interesting.
You've had a lot of experience in this area.
I agree.
So he meets the girl. They go to his apartment. She goes willingly. Everything's fine.
Excellent.
They consummate their, 3 or 4 or 5 hour relationship.
Lust. Okay.
And come 8 or 9 in the morning, he asks her, hey, we're all done. I took care of you. You took care of me. I think it's time to go. And she doesn't want to leave.
She's sleepy.
Well, she doesn't want to leave. They get into an argument. He grabs her jacket, he grabs her purse, and he forcibly pushes her out of the house. He might have pushed her into a door jam. She calls 911, and guess what police officer shows up?
Let me guess. It's Kojak.
I show up. Me and my partner, we show up. She tells us the story. He tells us the story. Unfortunately, this was in the mid-'90s, and the domestic violence law back then was very, very strict in that. I shouldn't even say it was strict. It was strict with you have to arrest, but it was just so vague in the sense that she actually fell under the category of a dating relationship. Even though he just had sex with her and he knew her for 4 or 5 hours, he gets arrested. We bring him back for a domestic assault and battery.
Now, here's the thing. If he brings her back and he has sex with her and then he beats her up.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. She just wouldn't leave. He's trying to push her out of the house. So he puts his hands on her. He pushes her a little too hard.
Why wouldn't she leave?
Probably because she had nowhere to go.
Okay.
She had nowhere to go. So we arrest him. We bring him back to the station. It's a Sunday. Early Sunday morning around 9 or 10 o'clock. He asks us, is she still there? And we say, yeah, she's still there. We kind of thought that he didn't mind her being there. He goes, I want her out. So
she was not the girlfriend.
She's
was
not
just somebody he met
she's just a floozy you meet in a bar, Dave.
A floozy?
A dime a dozen floozy.
That's sexist.
All right. So we go there, and the landlord is there also. The landlord, this is an apartment complex, 4 or 5 apartments. And the landlord wants her out.
Okay.
So we knock on the door. She opens the door, and we say, hey, you got to go. And she goes, actually, no, I don't. I know the law. She got a restraining order in that 2 or 3 hour time span. She called the police station, came to the police station, and they gave her a restraining order in the event that he gets out on the weekend. Now, we could have no contact. And a part of the restraining order back then was she doesn't have to leave the apartment, even though it's not hers.
Right.
So, yeah, we go there under the orders of just make sure she didn't steal anything, make sure she didn't damage anything, and tell the landlord she's got to stay. Well, me and my partner went there. We were having none of that. So we went a little rogue, and we told a lot rogue. And we told her she had to leave. We walked into the apartment. We grabbed her stuff. We threw it out in the hall. We escorted her out of the apartment, out of the city, got her a cab. I think she lived a few towns over in Lynn. Well, I'm always going to say Lynn, Massachusetts, because it's just where all the crazy criminals, people who are trying to manipulate situations live. So it's easy to say she's from Lynn.
Was she crazy or a con woman?
She was more of a con woman taking advantage of the law in a situation. A few hours later, guess who we get a call by? Because she calls Hawk, Help for Abused Women and Children.
Yep.
They're very upset because they know the law, or at least they knew the law back then.
Yeah.
Which was, like I said, it was very vague, and it gave the victim a lot of power. And they said, why'd you kick her out? We said, well, because she was just a freeloader. That's all she was. And it didn't...
So you told them the truth.
I told them the truth,
right.
but
Now,
they still supported her.
Yeah,
the people who work for Hawk, a lot of them hate men. Very simple.
You know, I've gotten that sense.
Very simple.
I've gotten that sense. The question with Hawk is always, are they simply advocating as hard as they can for whoever with no questions?
No, they're usually extremely biased toward the female. I can see being biased toward children, which is great.
Right.
Innocent kids.
Biased toward the victim.
Biased. Well, it's they don't advocate for men. They only advocate for women.
What do you mean?
Help for abused women and children, not for abused men and children.
So if you're in a
only women.
a relationship where you're getting beaten up by your
women.
spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend,
Yeah, they don't have one for males, Dave. I don't know what it's called, but if you might want to start one.
Yeah, I might want to. But I mean, what about gay? I mean, we know this.
Well, I'm sure there's one out there now.
We know in lesbian relationships, lesbians get there's domestic. We know there's domestic violence in lesbian relationships. I'm assuming there's got to be violence in male relationships, male relationships.
You would know. Come on, Dave. Today's National Out Day on podcasts.
Yeah, I'm good with that. But my point is, so anyway, so you think they hate? You think the Hawk hates men?
In this situation, it was difficult. However, she was already out of the apartment.
Right.
She was back wherever she was staying, a few towns over. We did what we had to do. We took a little heat. Hawk came into the station on the Monday. They bitched and moaned to the chief. A couple of people from the district attorney's office called. But a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days later, they had forgotten about it because there was another situation that would arise that takes their mind off that one. So we kind of got away with that, but we were looking out for the guy who got arrested because he was given a bad deal. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like it was a horrible deal. And again, if he had taken her, had sex with her, and then beaten the hell out of her, that's a whole different story.
He just wanted her out of the house.
Yeah.
Nowadays, this law is different. A significant dating relationship 20, 25 years ago would include just having sex with a girl. 3 hours later, you're in a dating relationship. Nowadays, today, it's more logical. It's not 1 or 2 times you go out on a date. It might be 3 or 4 or 5 dates you've been dating for a month. Right. That's significant. This wasn't significant, but the law back then covered it, and she manipulated the system.
Yeah,
but she didn't manipulate 2 rogue cops. I can tell you that right now.
By the way, I you probably already know this, but one thing I've learned, there's a high percentage of women who are incarcerated. And there are very few women incarcerated in Massachusetts jails, but of the women incarcerated, the rate of mental illness is much higher than in the male population.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. And percentage-wise.
Yeah. Is this because what?
So, well, you know what the message to you, Dave, is?
What's that message?
Don't date a girl who was in jail because odds are she has a mental health problem. She's probably a psycho.
I told you about that woman, right? Yeah. That I dated.
I know a lot of the ladies you've dated, Dave, and I use the term lady real loosely.
You know something? It's created a situation for me. Now that's my expectation. It's like this woman that I've been dating, you know, she's nice. She seems really nice, but she hasn't tried to steal any money from me.
There you go.
So I've got to ask myself, does she really care? All right, go. What's the next one?
The next one is the few but not so proud. The few, the proud, the Marines, that's kind of their mantra, but this one is the few but not so proud. So what it was, there was a Marine. He was 100% disabled, but more psychologically disabled. Okay. He was in the war. Yeah. He came back. He had some issues. He was a veteran. He was 100% disabled.
Okay.
Well, he also had some alcohol and drug issues.
Okay.
So he went to the AA meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA meetings.
Taking care of himself.
There you go, Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah, doing what he should do.
And he met a fine young lady at one of these meetings. Rule of thumb, Dave. Big red flag. Don't trust the girls you meet at the AA and NA meetings, okay?
How about the ones in Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous?
Well, those would be pretty good. Don't trust them. Don't trust the pedophiles. And don't trust criminals in general. However, he trusted her.
Yep.
She came back to his apartment. They hung out, watched TV, had something to eat. She asked if she could stay the night. She stayed the night. They had no sex, Dave. That's what's wrong with this whole scenario. They never had sex.
All right.
Or at least according to the story as it goes, never had any sex. At some point, he asked her to leave. She wouldn't leave. So, just as the other guy did in our previous story, there's a assault and battery that takes place. He tries to get her out of the apartment. Now, this young lady who's been in and out of the system, she had a criminal record. She really knows how to play the system. So basically what happened was he gets arrested on a weekend. She stays in his apartment all weekend. And when he gets out, she has a restraining order waiting for him. Now, he can't even go back to his apartment. He can go back to get some clothing and some money or whatever else he has there, but that's a 5-minute visit. He's out of his apartment. She's staying in the apartment. Now he's on the streets, Dave.
So she's never paid rent.
Never paid rent.
She, quote unquote, had no place to live.
Well, yeah, she's a recovering drug addict.
Right. So he's paid rent. He's struggling. Where's the help for him?
He went to his veterans agent. They really couldn't do a lot for him at that point because what happened, as you can see what happened in a moment here, is they told him don't go back, but he had someone from the veterans agency call her and tried to smooth things over, tried to kind of work the situation. She called the cops, 209A law, third-party contact. He violated the restraining order.
Because he didn't have his lawyer call.
Because he gets arrested. He goes into jail again. He's in for 10 more days. He gets out. And like I said before, he's had post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
He's had alcohol and drug issues.
Yeah.
He's out in the streets. He gets some drugs, alcohol. And within a week of that whole scenario, Dave, of getting out for the second time, and this situation probably went on for 2 months back and forth.
Yeah.
He dies of a drug overdose in an alley.
Horrible.
Horrible.
Horrible. Horrible.
So he's the victim here, and she manipulated the situation so bad it just put him over the edge.
Well, let's put it this way. You take away somebody's house from somebody who's already struggling in life.
Absolutely.
That's horrible. And there was nobody to help this guy because the system failed.
The system failed him because ultimately he could never have anyone contact her because once that happened, it was a violation of the restraining order.
And there's no lawyer that represents a person who's indigent, who's left his
I know the veterans agency tried to help him, but that's kind of you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
So how willing is someone going to help?
If you've got a veterans agent who's making that call for you and it turns out that it makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it, which it did make it worse.
Yeah, that's horrible.
So then ultimately the family tries to get the money back, tries to get, his checking account because she took money out of his checking account, took all his clothing, destroyed all his property. So it just made everything worse. And like I said,
and let me ask you this question. I would believe as a layperson, I would believe that if you go and you take money out of my bank account, that's stealing.
Absolutely it is. It's larceny. Larceny by check because it's a fraudulent check.
Then how come?
Well, he's at this point, he's deceased. The victim is deceased.
So there's no victim.
No victim, no crime. It's his money. These two situations, cops ultimately know who the bad person is. We know that both of these girls are just bad. One's a drug addict and the other's just a con woman.
Right.
We know that, but we also know the law. And anytime as a cop, you try to kind of go around the law and walk the gray area, now the cop's going to get jammed up. So it's like everyone knows what's going on, but no one really wants to help that much because they know now their job's on the line.
Right.
And these girls, these people know that. Con men know, or con women know the law better than the cops, and they know exactly where they can go and where the cop can't go.
And what's the worst thing about this story?
The worst thing about this story is he ends up dying. He never even had sex with her. Nothing. Not even a friendly hand job, Dave.
Oh, it's sad. It's sad. Next story.
This is kind of you, Dave, because you're definitely grandpa age.
I'm definitely grandpa age. I could be great grandfather by this age.
You know something? Let's just back up for a second. If there's a general theme here, and the general theme is that the men that we're talking about here, two things are going on. One, they're looking to have sex, and the girls know it, and they're using the sex lure to kind of get into a situation where they can manipulate this guy.
And this reminds you of me.
Well, no, this one reminds me of you. This is the lonely single man, elderly man
I wish I
in
had
his
a
70s or 80s.
Terrible. And
So
probably
lonely.
70s or 80s.
Well, you're 65. All right,
let's
63.
say 75. Let's say 80. 80-year-old man. All right.
So the lonely man syndrome.
yeah.
He's at the grocery store. He's shopping by himself.
Yeah.
He's seen this girl here a couple of times. Attractive, but a street girl nonetheless.
Yeah.
They strike up a conversation. She asks for a ride home. Instead of going home, she comes to his house. They negotiate some fee because I guess on the side, she probably does a little prostitution, Dave.
Okay.
Can you just be a little prostitute? Kind of like a weekend prostitute,
I know,
part-time prostitute.
I've met some. I've met some. I've met some.
So over the course of a few weeks, she's hanging at his apartment. He provides oral sex to her, and now she's staying in his apartment.
He provided to her or she provided to him?
Well, she provided to him, and he gave her a few bucks.
Okay. So he gave her
Now
a few
she's
bucks
staying
for
there,
all
and he's
this.
like I said, he's a lonely old guy having sex with a 35-year-old, relatively attractive, homeless prostitute.
Okay.
What could be better than that, Dave?
Perfect. And then what happened?
Now you want to know the whole story,
You know what?
Dave?
No, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's fine.
Right
It's
now,
fine.
right now it's good.
Nothing suspicious about this
She's
one.
there voluntarily.
Yep.
Although she has you wouldn't want to bring her to the family Christmas party. But what happens is she's in the situation. She borrows his car. He's got a lot of money, nice Mercedes. She gets into a car crash. She doesn't have a driver's license. His car gets towed. He ultimately gets summoned to court for allowing an unlicensed driver. Now, not only is his car wrecked, now he's going to court because he allows a girl who's unlicensed to drive it. And then she starts writing fraudulent checks. And then she starts bringing in the rest of her crew. And they start staying at the house. They start manipulating the situation. And this went on for months. And you want to know when it changed, Dave?
When did it change? Oh, let me guess. I'll tell you.
When did it change?
When she turned 40 and lost her looks.
There you go. It changed when the bank started seeing this girl come in with this elderly gentleman, and they called the daughter of this elderly gentleman. And
Are
said,
they
"Hey."
allowed to do that?
In some situations, yes. A lot of times people will flag bank accounts.
Okay.
Or a teller who may know you personally
Right.
is just looking out for your best interest.
Okay.
So that happens. It doesn't happen as much as you would think it would.
Right.
It happened in this situation. And the daughter, who had very little to do with her father, but the father had some money.
Yep.
The only reason why the daughter got involved, because up to this point, after 3 months, $15,000 gone down the tubes. And that money was the daughter's inheritance.
Okay.
So the only reason why she cared is because she was losing money.
Yeah.
So basically what happened is ultimately they kicked her out of the house, but they ruined his apartment. And the cops in this situation were in a tough situation because when the cops showed up on more than a few occasions, the elderly man didn't want her to leave. He didn't want these criminals, her friends, to leave either because he was lonely and they were providing a service to him. It's kind of weird.
What was the
Well,
service?
at least was with her, it was sex, but with the other people, it was kind of companionship, Dave.
Yeah.
You see this often with elderly people,
Oh,
especially.
this is the thing that makes the elderly
This is something
such an easy
you
target.
can look forward to, Dave.
Yeah, I know.
You don't have any friends right now other than me and a few comics. A few years from now, Dave, they're going to be all hanging out at Rattigan's apartment. Oh, 20 homeless drug addicts taking advantage of you.
Oh no.
That's how they victimize the elderly. They befriend them.
It's the loneliness, which is what makes you have the conversation when you pick up the call, which makes you take the salesman's call, which makes you talk to the young man at the door, which
And invite them in.
Yeah, and
Then on the side, Dave, you're getting a little oral sex. I mean, come on now, Dave. You can drive my Mercedes just for a few blowjobs on a Friday night, Dave.
I
don't have a Mercedes. I have a 2006 minivan, so.
that's something to look forward to for all of us. Thanks. That's really brightened my day. What else we got? Anything good?
We're kind of going at a fast pace today, Dave. You got to be somewhere? You got a couple of girls hanging at the house?
I gotta get my daughter. Thanks.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
I got
okay.
stuff. I'm not out looking for.
Well, I know a few girls that I knew on the job that I could call and pick them up. Just give them $10.
The line that I missed was saying, well, actually, all this talk has got me kind of lonely for the ex-girlfriend.
There you go. This is a good one. This is right up your alley when you were a younger guy, because I know you always talk about your college buddies and traveling around the country.
We were traveling around the country. We were in a band.
There you go. Don't worry. I'll be out in the morning. So an old college roommate traveling across the country, he calls his buddy and says, hey, I'm going to be passing through. Do you mind if I stay a night? And the guy goes, sure. He's my old college buddy. Probably graduated 10 years ago. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. Guy shows up. He stays more than a night, Dave. Not only does he stay more than a night, this roommate that he's staying with is a very attractive girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes. And guess what happens? The guy goes to work. The college roommate who's just passing through and the girlfriend have a few drinks. And guess what happens when a girl has a few drinks, Dave?
One thing leads to another.
And her clothes come off. They start having sex. He finds out about it. He breaks up with the girl. And who leaves? Do you think he leaves or do you think she leaves the apartment?
That's it. Oh, he leaves.
This is about a week later.
It's a week later?
About a week later.
Wait. He's got to live with this for a week?
Well, like I said, sometimes there are certain people out there that...
Was this one that you investigated or was this one that...
This is one where a friend of mine who's a police officer in Iowa... I just came back from Iowa.
That explains.
And he told me the story when we were out in Iowa.
Those
Iowa girls, they'll sleep with anyone.
Yeah, they will. those Iowans and their randy ways.
Yeah, so I just came back from a Marine Corps reunion in Iowa, and we were chewing the fat just like we did last year, if you remember. Yep. Marine Corps reunion, and I got a war story from one of the guys out there, and this is the story.
And he said, I remember I stayed with my old college roommate.
So so he leaves. She stays. She stays in the apartment.
Okay. Which that makes a tiny bit more sense. Well, you know what? It depends on who was paying the rent.
Well, one of them who's helping pay the rent now?
What's that?
The guy who was going to California. He never went to California, Dave.
He stayed.
True
there.
Love. True love.
True love. What are they going to tell their grandkids?
He stayed there. And guess what? The guy who leaves the apartment still lives in the same area. The girl and the guy who was just passing through, Dave, still live there. So they probably run into each other at the local mini mart, at the local,
are they still there?
At the local rodeo, whatever the hell they have in Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
So you think it might? So later on, they're going to tell their children and their grandchildren.
How'd you meet?
When I met your mother, it was love at first sight.
Well, it was love after her boyfriend left to go to work, and we had a few wine coolers on the deck.
Do you think he's accepted it? The boyfriend?
He hasn't killed anyone yet, so probably.
He's been scarred, or do you think he's been scarred for life?
Probably scarred for life. Doesn't trust any of his friends.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't trust girls anymore. He could be. He could have flipped to the other side, Dave. Probably has a male roommate, and he's probably in his 40s now, right? That's 10 years ago, so he's probably in his 40s.
Is that what you think?
That's what I'm thinking, Dave.
With this?
Well, that's what happened to me, Dave.
Wow.
The only good thing about this story is no one gets arrested on this one.
So what happened with the cop?
The what?
The cop who had to deal with this. What do you have to deal with? Did the cops intervene at all?
You get a call there for like a disturbance, Dave, and they just go there for a disturbance, and they kind of tell the story. What are we even arguing about? Well, this guy is passing through on his way to California, and I'm going to work, and he's banging my girlfriend. Well, can you guys square this away, or we have to stay here while you guys try to deal with it?
In this case, they're calling the cops to be referees.
Well, I believe it was someone in the housing area
who called because there's
a loud argument.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's sense. This was an easy one for the cops because it's not a crime. It's not a crime to sleep with your best friend's wife or girlfriend.
Case like this.
Yes.
Right now, there's no crime. Just everyone's yelling at each other, a lot of hurt feelings. How long does the cop stay at the house?
I would say, first, there's two ways to look at it. If it was me on that call, the less information I have, the better. Because if I leave and something really bad happens,
right,
then I'm just going to claim I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I went there. They were arguing. When I showed up, everything was fine. I told them to keep the noise down. Have a nice night. I know nothing other than that.
So when they say to you, but she did this and he did this and she did this and he did this, then you say, I don't care about any of that.
I don't care about any of that. Was anyone assaulted? Was anyone robbed? Was anyone intimidated? What's the crime? Yeah. Other than a noise complaint.
So you don't pull guy number one aside and say, listen, what happened to you is a horrible thing. You should get out of here now before you're hot, before any violence happens.
We will usually try to throw that advice out there so we don't have to come back, because obviously in a situation like that, you could leave and 10 minutes later a knife could come out, Dave, or a gun, or someone just gets into a Donnybrook out there in the cornfields of Iowa, Dave.
So what happened to this guy?
So what happened to this guy?
Yeah,
Which
the nice
guy?
The nice guy, the good guy.
We already went over that. They all live in the same town.
Yeah.
I don't know what town in Iowa. I don't know. Let's call it Waterloo, Iowa.
All right.
And that's it, Dave. No one's been murdered. No one's been killed.
Did he find true love?
We already went over that.
Okay.
What do you got, Alzheimer's?
Fine. No, you change.
What do you got, Alzheimer's?
You're changing the details.
I'm not changing the details,
You just
Dave.
said the guy lived by himself with another guy.
Oh, I was just making fun of that,
Yeah,
Dave.
you were.
I was just being a
ashamed of
jokester.
that. You
I was
should be
being a
ashamed of
jokester,
yourself.
Dave. I was being a jokester.
I've had jokes like that.
All right.
All right.
That's why you're the comedian and I'm not.
What's the next story?
This is actually the last one.
This isn't the last one, is it?
Yeah, it
I
is.
thought we had two more.
Do we have two more?
Yeah. Oh no, I
No,
take
we
it
don't,
back.
Dave.
We're flying through these.
Yeah. Well, you got to go pick your daughter up. She's standing on a street
listen,
corner
we
in a
can
bad
spend-
neighborhood.
We can spend more time. She's at the Y.
Oh, that's a bad neighborhood, Dave. I've met some real creepy people at the Y, Dave. I absolutely have, Dave.
Really?
Absolutely.
Where do you think the creepiest place to meet people?
To meet people?
Yeah, where would.
I think as a cop, some of the worst scenarios that we see when people are cheating on each other are at gyms. Gym relationships.
Yeah.
The wife goes to the gym, the husband doesn't. Husband goes to the Y, drops the kids off, the wife never goes, and he strikes up a conversation with another mother sitting there watching the swim class. I'm thinking gyms is where I've dealt with a lot of the origination of many domestic disturbances when people get caught cheating with each other.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
my own experience.
I have a theory. I wouldn't even call it a theory.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen to you because you don't look like you go to the gym too often. But go ahead.
No, that will never happen to me at the gym. Here's what I have noticed though. If you're in a relationship and your wife or your girlfriend starts going to the gym a lot, that means you're done.
Usually,
you're done. She's getting herself in shape for another season.
There you go.
And you're not playing this season. It's an amazing thing, but it's absolutely, in my experience and the experience of my anecdotal experience with my friends, that's exactly what you see. You see that woman hitting the gym hard, and she's
dropping about 20 pounds, looking good, coloring her hair,
looking
getting
great.
those lips fixed up.
Yep, exacy. And you know,
dressing like a 22-year-old when she's 42.
Not who you're talking about. It sounds like you're talking about somebody really specific. Now, how often do you go to the gym?
Oh, all the time. Mine's an all-man gym, Dave. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I know yours is not an all-male gym.
This one is called, Hey, Daddy, Can My Boyfriend Stay the Night?
This is the one that I'll look forward to.
This is a very common one.
Really?
You get a single father.
Yes.
17-year-old daughter.
Hold on. Let's just talk about the single father. A good man. Good man. Terrible circumstances. And now he's
stuck with the daughter.
Is he stuck with the daughter, or is this like a visitation situation, or is it?
No, it's just the father and the daughter live together in relatively nice house.
Where did this happen?
North Shore of Massachusetts, David. North Shore of Massachusetts.
Did you investigate this one?
I personally didn't, but I know all the players.
Okay.
So daughter asked the father, Hey, Dad, can my boyfriend stay over for a couple of nights? He's got nowhere to go. So the father, being a nice guy, wants to appease his lovely daughter.
Yeah.
Lets him stay over.
Was she lovely?
Relatively attractive.
Okay.
Relatively.
And was she saying, when she said there were two ways to sleep over, as you know. There's the way to sleep over.
Like he sleeps on the couch?
Yeah.
Or he sleeps in the bed and is banging the daughter at 2 in the morning.
Exactly. Which one is it?
The other one I just said, banging the daughter at 2 in the morning.
She allows her, so he's a modern father.
Yes.
And he assumes that the daughter is having sex and he doesn't want to be.
Doesn't want him to be doing it in a park, in a car, in an alley, on on a pallet in an alley somewhere, like our earlier guest BB was doing. So he says, hey, just stay at the house. He stays there for a while. A few nights turns into a few weeks. The father gets pissed off. He gets into an argument, gets into a physical altercation with the 18-year-old kid.
This is, by the way, if she's staying all this time, he's got primary custody of the child.
He does, but the issue we're dealing with here is now the father gets arrested for domestic assault and battery because the kid, while he's not a family member, he was classified as like a roommate. So that follows under the 209A law. He gets arrested, and while he's in jail for a day or so, the daughter, who gets a little bit manipulated by the boyfriend, the daughter and the boyfriend get a restraining order against the father and kick him out of the house. He can't be at the house. But unfortunately, the law, and it's still very similar today, because this is relatively recent, if you're the main moneymaker for a family, like the husband, and you're paying cell phone bills and electricity and gas and cable, and a restraining order is taken out against you, you can't stop payment because she's his daughter. He has to take care of her up until she's 18. So the court orders him to pay all this money out.
Yeah.
Paying the rent, paying the mortgage, paying everything. He's paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Now he's trying to live on his own. He can't afford it, so he stops payment. After 6 months.
Yeah.
Guess what happens?
I know what happens. Yeah, that's a violation of the order.
It's a violation of the order. Stopping.
He goes
payment.
to jail?
He goes to jail, Dave. He goes to jail. Ultimately, Dave, as this goes on, he goes to jail. He gets out. He can't pay. The house is under foreclosure. They take his house, Dave. His family home.
Yeah.
And like I said, he was in his 40s, probably been paying on that house for 15 years or so when he was previously married.
Yeah.
To this young lady's mom. What a bad deal that is, Dave.
It's a horrible deal.
So you still have time to put your daughter up for adoption. What is she, 14, 15, 16? Yeah,
16.
Usually they'll be adoptable at 17, Dave. 17 is the cutoff. Would you put that fine young lady up for adoption?
She's such a good kid, too.
I'm just kidding. She's a great kid, Dave.
No, you're right. I got to put her up for
adoption. So he loses everything.
All because
he let his daughter's boyfriend stay just for a night, turned into a couple of weeks, domestic assault and battery, violates the order.
There should be. I guess it's hard to say, like, what constitutes an actual roommate situation, but what happens when you have, what's your advice? As a cop, what's your advice if I bring home a woman and she stays? If I tell a woman she can stay for a week and then she's got to move.
I would never give that advice.
You would say, don't ever let anyone into your house?
I would say if you meet her after a comedy show and she looks.
Let's say it's somebody you know. Let's say
But you know what happens, Dave? Everyone comes in friendly. Everyone comes in helpful. And after a week or two or three, their true colors come out.
Yeah.
And the person they actually are, and if that's a bad person, they're going to manipulate that situation. You're going to see a side of them that you've never seen before. Because it's the old saying, until you live with someone, you don't really know them.
Right.
You can talk to them for 10 years on a casual basis, and they seem like a nice person. Then when you live with them, they shit all over they shit all over the toilet. They're just a slob, Dave. They're a pig. They eat all your food. They don't shower. Their room's in disarray.
But here's the thing. Let's say
How do you get them out, Dave?
That's the question.
Right now, now it's civil law, Dave. Now the cops show up. You tell me that scenario. She's been staying there for 2 or 3 weeks. I might say to you, this is civil. You're going to have to go to like housing court to get her kicked out. But if you were to say to me, hey, she's stealing my money, she's slapping me around, whatever you might allude to, now it's a domestic, now it's criminal. Are you going to lie and say that to get her out? You might say that. You might lie.
So what you're recommending to people
is lie to the police.
If you're in this situation, lie to the police.
Just lie to the police.
Say she's slapping me across the face.
She's taking advantage of me.
Then you've got a picture of yourself with finger marks on your face.
You can even go really rogue and say, hey, not only is she taking advantage of me physically, she's taking advantage of me sexually. I might even want to say it's a rape, a sexual assault. I wouldn't go that far, Dave.
But you could. I mean, that's basically because that's a lot of times.
I've seen females go that route.
Yeah.
I've never seen a male do that. Right. I've seen females go that route. Absolutely. The rule of thumb is just let them stay at night. If they're passing through and they're on their way to California, a night or so. But other than that, you gotta get out of here.
Well, here's another question. Let's say I have a roommate going to California, and he comes and he stays with me in Iowa, and he stays. There's no girlfriend. It's just him, and he decides he doesn't want to leave. Am I stuck?
It all depends on the type of person you are. If you're a physical person and you're gonna stick up for yourself and you're gonna, stick up for where you live, you might you guys might step outside, Dave, and have a little Donnybrook and have a little fight. But now, is it a domestic? Because he's been staying there for a couple of weeks. It's a tough one, Dave.
After talking to you, you know what I would do?
It's a tough one.
I would take that guy and I would say, let's step outside. And as soon as he walked out that door,
you want to know what a lot of times people do? They will do exactly that. They'll take all their stuff, whatever all their stuff is. And it's usually, if they're just traveling, it's usually a couple of bags. They'll put it on the porch. They'll lock the door. And then when the cops show up, that's why you have two different stories. The guy who's out on the porch with all his belongings, he has a story. Oh, my friend told me I could stay here. He invited me to stay here for as long as I wanted as I'm going west. And the other guy is saying, whoa, he says he's passing through. He's only staying a night or two and he's out of here. You have two different scenarios.
Yeah.
I usually believe the guy who either owns the house or the person who owns the house or the person who's the primary person in the apartment.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Usually believe them. They're usually telling the truth.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. But even let's say this. Let's say we're college roommates and I come to stay at your house and you say you can stay as long as you want. Don't worry about it. But you're thinking as long as I want is like 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah. Most people don't take you up on that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, so you're just being nice. Or you're just being like, it doesn't matter if it's 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, whatever you need to take it, get back on your feet, whatever the thing is. But I take it to mean months.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are tough for cops. Cops can't win on those.
Yeah.
If they don't kick the guy out and then there's some sort of a physical altercation, the cop could be liable for not acting properly. If they do kick him out, like myself and my partner did, then you got all the men haters from a hawk picketing at the station on Monday morning.
Right.
You can't win. You can't win.
The
cops lose, and the person who owns the house or the apartment loses even a lot bigger.
You know what I like about our little sessions?
What's that?
No matter how I feel coming in, when I leave, I think to myself, we're doomed.
We're doomed,
Life
brother.
is miserable.
You know something? Rule of thumb, Dave. Have no friends. Just have acquaintances. Don't invite anyone over unless she's around 22, wicked hot, and you'd be willing to go to jail for a couple of weeks because you just had yourself a nice 22-year-old girl, Dave.
Hey, let me ask you this question.
You could die with that last thought, couldn't you?
Let's put it this way. If I repeat it in front of the right people, I will die with that thought. So let me ask you this question, just a kind of a separate scenario, but let's say you called a prostitute. I know you're big on that. She comes over to your place. You've had her here in your place. She doesn't want to leave. What happens to you?
That scenario right there, how long is she there for? A day or two? Or?
She's there for a day, but she's willing to say she's been there for a week.
Yeah, you would have to get law enforcement involved. Hopefully, you're going to have a middle-of-the-road, compassionate street cop who knows his shit or her shit.
Yep.
They'll run her criminal history. They may or may not find a history of prostitution, drug abuse, and stuff like that.
What if they don't find it?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think most cops don't want the situation to escalate. If they can manipulate that situation to get the person out, if they can do that, that would be the best thing to do. However, you don't want to write that on a report because in many instances, you don't have the legal right to do that.
Right.
So you have to kind of, on the slide, on the down low, with a little bit of a whisper, hey, get the hell out of here, or I might find a reason to arrest you.
Right.
Hint, hint.
Here's the other one. And seems to be something I see all the time in law enforcement. If somebody does not have a record, they haven't been caught doing anything, they can get away with a lot.
Because a lot of times the officer on scene will base his or her response on the past history of a person they're dealing with.
Right.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Right. And if they don't have...
If they have nothing and someone's telling you that they're doing a certain thing, a lot of times it doesn't connect.
Yeah.
Especially the older they are. Like a 15-year-old kid, he doesn't have a criminal record yet because he hasn't come out of the closet yet and he hasn't become a criminal yet.
Right, yeah.
But a 45-year-old guy or a 45-year-old girl, someone's telling you a really bad story about them,
Yep.
and you're trying to put it together and like, wow, they're 45. They've never been arrested for anything.
Right.
They seem like a nice person. Now, who's telling the truth here?
Right.
Is she a really nice person and this guy's just talking shit to get her out? Or is she a complete con woman, like the ultimate con woman, never been caught? You try to figure that out, and sometimes you do it correctly and other times you don't. Roll the dice, baby.
Sometimes
they come up snake eyes, Dave.
In my experience, that's the truth. All right, so that's it for this lovely hour of Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. You can reach us at insidetheline.org or realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. See you next time.